The single greatest reason for addressing this matter is what I have learned over time about the concern, the worry, and even the guilt felt by many missionaries who, for various reasons, were reassigned to a different field of labor during their time of service. Such reassignments sometimes are necessary because of events and circumstances such as physical accidents and injuries, delays and challenges in obtaining visas, political instability, creating and staffing new missions, or simply the evolving and ever-changing needs around the world in the work of proclaiming the gospel. When a missionary is reassigned to a different field of labor, the process is precisely the same as for the initial assignment. Members of the Quorum of the 12 seek inspiration and guidance in making all such reassignments.
Hello, everyone. This is Justin Miller, and I'm back with another missionary. This is Elder Carson Seegmiller, who's just returning home for an intermission before he is reassigned. We'll get to that in a minute. Elder Seegmiller, why don't you start by telling us where you're coming home from?
I'm coming home from the Ecuador Quito North Mission.
Okay, and you were telling me that you left here December 18th.
Correct.
And you spent about 6 weeks in the MTC in Provo.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've been in Ecuador now a couple of months.
Yeah.
What was it like in Ecuador?
It was super cool. It in the area that I was, the city, it was called Ibarra, and the weather was awesome. In Ecuador, the weather doesn't really change because you're right on the equator. So it's either rain or sun are the only two variations, but it was about 70 degrees every day, working with the Latino people of Ecuador. Super awesome.
So after 6 weeks, how did you feel about your Spanish coming out of the MTC?
After 6 weeks, it was rough. I didn't really know much still. I still don't know very much, but after spending 2 months in the country, I definitely learned a lot when that's all you speak and all you hear.
So did you feel like you had a pretty good idea what was happening around you?
Yeah. Those last couple of weeks, I could understand pretty much anything, what they were trying to say, and responding was more difficult, but I knew what they were saying.
So your dad sent me a few pictures before we started. It looked like your companion was Latino.
Yeah.
And he was your trainer, is that right? I mean, only 2 months is probably your trainer.
Yeah,
What was his name?
His name was Elder Murcia. He was from Bogota, Colombia, and he had about 9 months in the mission. He was super cool.
So you were Spanish 100% of the time then?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, so let's talk about the coming home part, and then we'll go back to talking about your experience in Ecuador. So you're part of the wave of missionaries that are being reassigned as a result of this global pandemic. Did you have any interesting experience about getting out of Ecuador? Was it a big process like some of the other places, or was it relatively straightforward?
I wouldn't use straightforward as the right. I don't know. It was pretty hectic. The country locked its borders about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So for the past, I just got home yesterday, Saturday. So for the previous 10 days, we were locked inside, not allowed to even open our door. And that was the missionaries' rule. And then the country as well, no one was allowed to go outside from 2 p.m. to 5 in the morning. And so they called us and told us that we would have another 10 days of lock-in, so a total of 20 days, and then I would be sent home. And so I was planning on another 10 days, but on Wednesday they called me and said, I was just doing my studies. It was probably 1 in the afternoon. And they called me and said, hey, you need to pack your bags. We're leaving at 5 in the morning for an embassy flight that's coming to pick up all the North Americans and take us out. And if we don't get out of the country by Friday, then we're stuck here for another month. And so I packed all my bags, and then at 1:30 in the morning, they called me again and said, hey, we just got an update that you're only allowed to bring one bag just because it's an embassy flight. And so I woke up at, I went back to bed for another 30 minutes and then woke up at 2 in the morning and threw all my stuff into one bag, 2 years worth of stuff. And it weighed about 85 pounds, super heavy. Then we left at 5 in the morning. We bused to Quito, the main city where the airport is. And I stayed the night there at the secretary's house. And then the next morning we headed to the airport, and they told us at the airport that, hey, your one bag is only allowed to weigh 30 pounds. And so I had to dump all of my stuff with a lot of the elders, and we just left it there in the airport. And so I had one bag in my backpack coming home that weighed 30 pounds. So it was
Wow.
pretty crazy.
So, so they woke you up at 1 in the morning, made you leave at 5 a.m., but then you spent the night. And how long did it take to get to Quito?
It was my place is about 3 hours by bus, but none of the buses were working because of the virus. And so we just had to call members, and they were able to drive us. We had a couple members that were shuttling us to and from Quito. It was a real miracle that we were all able to get there, but it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours by car.
And then they had to work with being back by 2 o'clock. So that's why you had to go so early.
Right.
How many missionaries left with you at the same time?
With me that flew home on Friday, there was about 50 missionaries. And the day before, there was about 50 other missionaries. But just from my mission, we had 3 missions that came home with us that day. So there was easily over 100. And then we all stayed in a hotel in Miami that night.
All right. So now you're home. You haven't been released. You're still living the mission life at home. What have you been told so far about what to expect going forward?
I've heard a lot of things. Obviously, I don't know. I think a lot of rumors are going around, but from what I've heard is 14 days here quarantined, and then we should be getting a reassignment somewhere in the States. And yeah, that's about as much as I know.
So they're not going to, it'll be immediately 14 days, then be reassigned. It won't be like you have to wait months.
I hope not. I sure hope not. But yeah, I know a few people that have been home longer than 14 days and haven't left. So we'll see.
Okay. And tell us about what mission rules you're having to abide by now that you're at home. Like, how does that work to be a missionary at home?
Well, I'm obviously going to find out more, but as far as I know, it's kind of just living normal mission life and doing the best that I can here. So I'll be waking up on time, doing my studies, obviously keeping on the rules with technology, movies, music, things like that. My brothers, I'm kind of making them be my companions right now. So that'll be fun for them to see a little bit of the mission life, but it's pretty much as normal as I can make it here in the house.
Well, you and Luke are still set apart, so it occurred to me that you guys could be distant companions, because that's what they're doing with MTC missionaries or MTC at home. They're having a remote companion.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I would love that.
So one of the photos your dad sent me, a couple of photos, it looked like it was the same kid, but it was a baptism photo. So you and your companion were dressed in white. They were dressed in white, like they were getting ready to be baptized. Mm-hmm. Tell us about how the work was in Ecuador that you got to experience.
Yeah, the work was super cool. The people there are really, they're really open to talking to people on the street. You can just kind of stop anyone and talk to them. Everyone is Catholic, but Catholic because they don't really know much about their religion or anything. It's tradition. And so they believe in Jesus Christ, which is super cool. And yeah, we were able to work with a lot of people. They're really open. They let you in their house. But yeah, we were able to have those 2 baptisms with those brothers. That was a super awesome experience. And just a lot of other lessons with some cool investigators that I really love.
what what are you taking away from Ecuador? Like, what are the things you're going to remember forever about your 2 months there?
Yeah. Um, Obviously a ton. I mean, everything is so different there. It's a real shock, but um, the probably the biggest thing that I've noticed or that I love that how much I changed is just like my testimony of Jesus Christ and how close I got to the scriptures and to him because when you're in a country like that and you don't know anyone and you don't know the language, it's really easy to kind of feel trapped sometimes or alone. And knowing that he was always there, Jesus Christ was always there, and just being able to find peace through him and in the scriptures, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. And then humility too, and just being grateful, gratitude for everything we have because we're so blessed to live here in this country.
Yeah, being in a third world country really is eye-opening that way. I agree.
Yeah.
Do you have any indication that you'll get to keep teaching in Spanish?
Um, I have not heard anything. I would really like to. I really want to keep learning the language because I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there. And so I want to, yeah, I would really like to, but I haven't heard anything.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out because they're going to need missionaries the world over with 20,000 missionaries coming home early. And it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you do missionary work when you were in the house? Were you able to keep doing any kind of missionary work for the
Yeah,
10 days?
yeah. So we were expected to um, live all the rules, get up on time, um, contact people, teach lessons, set baptismal dates, everything just through our little phone. We didn't have a smartphone, but um, yeah, it was really cool to just be able to call people. I noticed everyone was really receptive to hear just a message of Jesus Christ and a message of hope because everyone's locked in, not just us, right? And so it was cool. People that normally would have been busy or at work, instead were at home and they were able to be able to talk to us. We were able to just share scriptures, teach lessons. It was cool.
Did you see them make progress as they were locked in?
Um, Not as much as in person. It was difficult because we weren't able to like give them a Book of Mormon or, um, it's hard to explain those things over the phone when people,
Sure.
it's all foreign to them. But yeah, we were able to just like extend little invitations like, hey, read this chapter of the Bible, or yeah, will you start saying your prayers to Jesus Christ and God, and we were able to kind of work with them that way and just get them closer to Jesus Christ, help them start strengthening their testimonies, and then um, obviously updating like the area book, and hopefully that when these new Ecuadorian missionaries return to their home country, they'll be able to pick up where we left off with these people and
Yeah.
help them progress.
What was the ward or branch like where you were serving?
Yeah, we had a pretty big ward. There were two chapels in our city, which is a lot. Our ward probably had around 100 people, and it was interesting. There was a lot of big families that made up the ward, like their grandparents and then children, grandchildren, all of their husbands. So it was cool to see that families kind of work together in a ward setting, all of their relatives working together. But yeah, we had a really good ward. They were super faithful, super helpful to the missionaries. We got a lot of cool referrals from them, and they were super supportive of any work that we were trying to do.
That's awesome. I just want to ask you more about Ecuador. Like, what kind of things do they eat, and what was your favorite food?
Yeah, um, they eat a ton of rice, so much rice. Every meal was, well, you start lunch with soup, and then after that, it's just a huge plate of rice with either chicken or potatoes or bananas or anything, but it was always rice. Um, my mission was kind of cool. It had a lot of different uh, I don't even know what the word is, like environments, I guess. But we had the coast, which was the beach, super hot, and then you move more toward the east, and we had the jungle, and then we had indigenous, like native people that spoke a different language. So we had all sorts of different types of food and people and cultures. But my favorite food was encebollada. It's like a soup with fish and onions, and it was really good. But I really enjoyed the food.
Cool. That's interesting. So was the city where you were serving by the beach, or was it in the jungle? Like, what was the environment like where you were?
Yeah, so it was a mountainous area, right in the middle between the two. So I was right at the base of one volcano, and then um, I could see like two other volcanoes from where I was, and I lived right by all the indigenous people. Um, all the all the men, like my stake president, had a braid halfway down his back, and they wear white pants and ponchos to church. All the men had super long black hair. All the women wore like gold necklaces and special white shirts every day, and it was cool.
That is
They're
cool.
super nice. But yeah, it was more of a mountainous, um, more volcanoes.
Huh. Did you find as you were contacting people that one particular message seemed to really resonate with them?
Yeah, the message of just Jesus Christ, when you mentioned his name, people immediately connected because even though they didn't really, a lot of them weren't like active members of their church, um, everyone had a belief in Jesus Christ. And so when we would start talking to someone and they would, not be very receptive, and then we'd mention the name of Jesus Christ, and immediately they would be like, "Oh yeah, I believe in Jesus Christ. My family, my grandpas, they have pride that they have that belief." So that was cool. And then um, English classes too. We would always invite them to English class with a little like invitation, a paper invitation, and the people there were super interested in learning English, and then we were able to contact people through that too.
That's cool. So, and then did the English classes lead to discussions about the gospel a lot of times, or how did that work together?
Yeah, so it was a good way if people weren't interested in the gospel at first to kind of spike their interest. Um, but they would come, we would start with a prayer, teach English, end with a prayer, and then after we were just able to kind of hang out and talk to them, and then lead towards, yeah, like can we come over and visit you or um, and most of the times after you kind of get to know someone, learning something different than the gospel when you're trying to work through English together, and then you ask about the gospel, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." So
Yeah, they're comfortable with you. I'll listen to you now.
yeah,
And
exactly.
is your Thai when you got from Ecuador?
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
From the indigenous people. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to you talk about getting the call in the middle of the night. It's like we knew when we were going home, so we could like get a last few minute things. But if you got a call at 1 in the morning, there's no more last minute things. It's now.
Right. Yeah.
Um, well, cool. Is there any other stories you can think of that you want to share with everybody before we um, conclude?
Um, yeah, I have one cool experience. I was, I mean, I have a lot of cool experiences, but one time I was on interchanges with um, the district leader, and we were contacting, just knocking doors. Everyone has big metal gates in front of their house, and so you just take a coin or a pen and like bang on the gate, and They come to the door, and this lady answered, and we told her we were missionaries and we have a message. Asked if we could come back, and she said, "Yeah, I have a little bit of time right now." And so we were able to teach her the first lesson just right on the spot. She didn't have a man at home, so we just pulled some chairs out in the street and we just taught her. And this was week 4, I think, of my mission. And so my Spanish was not good. I didn't really understand a lot. And the district leader kind of turned to me to bear my testimony. And it was so cool. I just started talking and just went on for like 2.5 minutes. And before that, it had been like memorized phrases. And I just kept talking and she understood everything. And I didn't really know what was happening, but it was cool. It was the gift of tongues for sure. Um, yeah, that was a really cool experience. And she was super receptive. She's progressing now. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard anything recently, but hopefully she'll get baptized and become a member.
That's an awesome experience. It's been fun to sit down and hear a little bit about your mission in Ecuador, and we will look forward to hearing about how things progress as you're getting through quarantine and preparing to get reassigned. And we'll keep a good thought that you get to keep serving in Spanish. And welcome back temporarily, and we'll be happy to wave goodbye again when you know what's next. So thanks.
Sweet. Thank you.